All right, welcome everybody. Today we're gonna be talking about protobufs and what does it mean and how do we use them, or how do we decode them, I should say. For today's topic, I have a protobuf file, or a file that contains protobuf encoded data, and it's called this is DFIR@gmail.com, right? This protobuf data came from Josh Hickman's excellent image, a public image that you can use. Let me see if I put the his yeah, I have the address. Let me look it up. If I could type, it would be nice. There we go. There we go. There we go. So if you go to a here, this URL down here, Josh Hickman has images there that are pretty nice. Excuse me. So iOS 13 images. So you go there, you download them, and this particular file comes from the Google kind of search assistant functionality, right? If you take this file and you open it with an editor, as I'm going to show you now, this is what you get, right? You get, and actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I lied. I'm sorry. The image is iOS images. He also has Android images. I think this one actually came from an Android image, so I apologize. It's from an Android image, not iOS. But in his blog, you can get also Android images for testing purposes. So I apologize about that part. I said iOS because right before the class, I was working on an iOS image. All right, so that being all cleared up, you see here some data, right? And like this stuff here, I don't know what this is. It has a little, you know, my editor interprets like a little Apple sign. But some stuff I do can read, like Famicom, web.isch, sounds like google.com, a domain. And if you look here, it's like some sort of link, right? And then more information here. Google Shopping seems like a descriptor of some sort. So I can make some of it out, but not much. I don't really know what's going on here. The thing with these type of protobuf files is that they don't have usually any particular header that you can detect. Yesterday I was tweeting about it, and a good point was brought up by, let me just look it up. By Og. If I could find his comment, there we go. By Og Begum. So he's saying, look, if he made the point that if you have a file and you see like these values here at the start, it also might be an indicator of protobuf, which I wasn't aware of. So I thought it was pretty useful. Usually, if I don't see a header that I understand, I tend to assume it's protobuf just to see what happens. Okay, so we open the file. We don't know what's going on. We can read some stuff, some we don't. So I'm going to show you how to, assuming it's protobuf, how to go about it. The first thing you will need is to read this article here from Yogesh Khatri, swiftforensics.com. That's his blog. And he'll give you a rundown explanation. It's fantastic explanation on how protobuf works. Okay, which we will go about it. The first thing about protobuf, it stands for protocol buffers. Again, it's a technology that Google came with, I should say. And they use it to encode data, key value pair data format, really similar to our dictionaries that we learn in Python. And you can encode it and then quickly decodes it, right? And it has 6 data types. They call it wires or wire types, okay? Variant, 64-bit, well, you can see here on the screen, right? The thing with this is that the way this works is if you have a protobuf file or data and you have an accompanying .proto file, you're set, because it tells you, okay, for each key value pairs, the proto file will explain, okay, this is the type of wire that you should be considering. And this is important. Why? Because look at this. Look at the length, the limited wire type. It accommodates string, and it also accommodates bytes. And it's a big difference there, right? A string and a byte string or stream are two different things, right? Are way two different things. So if you interpret the data as a string, you will get maybe some gobbledygooks that you can understand. If you interpret it as bytes and process it as bytes, then you might get something that you can actually understand, right? So this wire type sometimes, accommodates two very different types of data. And if you don't have the proto file, that's kind of hard, right? Which one is it? So sometimes you need to, which I'll show you, need to kind of, as you get the data out, make some assumptions and do some testing in regards to what type of data is coming out of that protobuf if you don't have the proto file. And most times when you're doing forensics on mobiles, you don't have the proto file. And why would you, right? The applications send the data, and the applications themselves know how to deal with the data. So they don't need a proto file to be sent or across the wire, for lack of a better term. All right. So Yogesh recommends we use BlackBoxProtobuf as the tool or library you will use to kind of manage these protobuf files or data types, okay? And he recommends, which I agree wholeheartedly, that we use his version of BlackBoxProtobuf. And I'm not gonna go through the whole article, please do it at your own time, because he adds the string type, which is fantastic, and it doesn't have it. Here is the page for the original version of the library, and you have here all the ones all the types they support, and Yogesh added the string type. So you can get that here, and this address, the second link here, github.com, and his GitHub repo for Protobuf. So get it there, okay? So now you have it, you download it, and you have it here in your folder as I have it here, in this folder here, right? And I have a script to deal with this file that I described at the beginning, the file that we looked at and we couldn't really make ends out of it. Let's open this file. What do we do? Well, first of all, I'm gonna import the library that I need, what I downloaded, right? And I'm gonna open the file. All right, so to do that, I'm gonna just show you here. Let me just comment this here. Don't worry about the all this code right now. We'll get to it step by step. All right, so what we're doing is I imported BlackBoxProtobuf so I can deal with it. I import these things, which I will use later. I have the name of the file that I need. Since the file is in the same directory as the script, I can just reference it by the name. And we know how to open a file in Python. So we open the file. And then we know how to read the file. And I want to see what's inside that file. So let's print it to the screen. As you can see here, you see it's like, what is this? What is this? And it's interesting because it has like the 08 that Og was talking about. And you can see some stuff here, but it doesn't really make any sense to me, okay? I'm gonna assume that this is Protobuf, and I'm gonna now call the library and use the decode method or functionality to go through it and give me a deserialized version of it, right? Which looks as such. All right, so this, let me just make a couple of things here. This output seems a little bit confusing, but it's really important that we get this. So you can see here, I got here a Python data structure with all the data all the way up to, where is it? It's actually the whole way, but the part that I'm interested in, at least for now, is kind of like this part here. This part here. Let's see, where's the one? Here. All right. Why am I highlighting this? This stuff we saw already. We saw the link, we saw the domains, we saw google.com. But what's this stuff down here? This stuff down here, we did not see that when we opened the file, right? You don't see it here. What is this stuff? Where this came from, right? All right, this is really important for you to get. What BlackBoxProtobuf does is it goes through the data, deserializing it, so you can kind of understand it. I put it inside lists and inside dictionaries as needed, but it also makes some assumptions about the type of data that you're working with, okay? So to make that look a little bit better, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use pretty print to kind of indent this data so it makes a little bit more sense. And let's throw it to the screen. There we go, much nicer, right? So you have here the data that we looked at here in a nice deserialized format, so we can address it, you know, by their locations. But then down here, here we start seeing this data we haven't seen before. And these are the assumptions that BlackBoxProtobuf does. It assumes, okay, on this field number 1, most likely that's an integer. And for example, let's see, there's, I mean, it makes some assumptions here. So the problem is that these assumptions, if you look at the output here on the top, don't really make sense to me. What are these numbers? What are they supposed to mean? And this B, remember the B for binary? Well, this is actually obviously a string. This is obviously a domain. It's not a binary blob, right? So this is wrong, right? It's not interpreting. It's making assumptions, but it's not making that interpretation correctly. As I mentioned, the limited file type also includes binary and strings, right? So what we need to do is, okay, we're gonna feed our library, we're gonna go and feed them some types that fix or actually map to the correct data type so we can actually make sense of them. Okay, so how do we do that? What I did was I literally copy pasted all this stuff here that you see at the bottom of those assumptions. I pasted them here, and then I started making my own research and understanding of those data types. So let me give you a couple that I was interested in. Number 4 here, this is a timestamp, right? And if you look at it here, it's pretty obviously, if you look at it here on the bottom, that's a Unix timestamp. Like that's like super obvious that it is, right? Here on number 5, this is a search query. And you might ask, well, Alex, how do you know this was a search query? Well, again, you got to come to the understanding of what the file does based on previous research, right? I didn't just happen to walk into this file. I was doing research on how Android devices manage queries or searches that you do when you're talking or when you do on the little search bar on the bottom. And looking at that application led me to this file. And in this case, Josh had made some searches for Famicom, which is like a little video gaming thing from back in the day. So at that point, I am able to put 2 and 2 together. All right, so this is a search. I know it's a search. Based on my research, I know it's a search on the application that I'm working on, right? So therefore, I'm gonna make this data assumption that it is a string and it's a search query, okay? So far, I said a lot, kind of a lot of dense data. If that's making sense, give me a 1 for the people in chat. All right, good, excellent. So again, to recap, it decodes, the library decodes, and it makes some assumptions on what data types they are, and it provides it to you. But you can take your own data types and change them, and then feed it to the library. So the library will give you the output as you expected. That's the whole point of this explanation. So like here, like URL, right? And URL domain and title, right? I know there's titles based on my research. So instead of going with whatever they have here, let me see here. Let's see what's the number 3. Instead of saying it's just a bytes, it's not bytes. I know it's a string, and I know it's a I know it's a title for the page. Okay, so I'm gonna apply that, and you can see it here. Instead of it says bytes, number 3, and it says the text, and the assumption is the type is bytes. No, we don't want to do that. Okay, so let me show you now how it works. So what I'm gonna do is let me hide the pretty prints for now. We don't need them for now. We're not gonna decode this yet. So I define my own types based on my research, what everything that I care about means, and I gave it a name so I can access it easily. Okay. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, again, call the library, call the method for it, feed it the file, right? And this PB, just recapping, comes from opening the file up here. So I'm gonna feed it the file, and now I'm gonna feed it the types that I changed, the types, the interpretation that I made. Here is types. And I'm gonna feed it to the function with it. And I'm gonna get them out. In this case, I just wanna see the values. I don't wanna see the types again because I know what they are, they're right here. So I'm gonna just pull out values. Let's see how that looks. Okay, so it gives me everything, but look at it here. And then we'll do pretty print in a second. Look how now it says, okay, URL domain, google.com, and it makes a proper interpretation. It doesn't show the B for binary because it's not binary. Title, oh, here's the title of the thing, right? Screenshot ID, the number, timestamp, I name it properly. search query, etc., etc. So it applies it. Now, this looks kind of ugly. Let's do pretty print again. So we can make it look nice. I don't want types. I just want the values. All right, look how clean and nice this looks, right? The values that you made the interpretation and the proper names. And now you can use your Python knowledge to access those things. Okay, can you see the big difference between, and let's show the difference. Let's show this one, right? And we're almost done. Let me open all this. Well, actually, I don't want to print this. What I want to do is just, I just want to pretty print the original so we can compare it. I think we're good here, right? Yes. All right. And I need an extra print here to give some space. All right. Let's look at that difference here, right? You see here, you don't have any titles, you just have numbers and no title for the sections. It shows them wrongly as binary when it's not, it's a string, and it goes down the line that way. Now the version that we fixed is down here. Look how nice it is. You got the proper titles or categories, names, whatever you're gonna call it, and the proper interpretation. In this case is binary. And I'll give you an example now of one that, because you can say, well, binary, and this I could read it, but let me show you, I hadn't planned it, but let's do it. Let me show you something that I did yesterday. So I was looking at this Apple a P list, and well, actually I cannot see. That's when I go off reservations. What happens? Okay, here we go. Let's do the group one. Okay, so what did I do? And actually I already implemented this in iLeap, so you'll see it push soon. So I open I look for my file, I open my file, I define my data types, and then I apply it to the file, and then I report on it. And I thought I had the old version without all this good stuff, but I didn't, so I apologize. So let me take you back to the original thing we were doing, so I don't confuse you more. All right, so now that we got our list, what do? Then it's easy peasy. The last thing we need to do is just pull out what we need. So let me stay close to the script. The reason I went off script is because yesterday I had a field, a field that it was detected as a, let me explain to you so it makes sense. It was fixed 64. That's the interpretation BlackBoxProtobuf did. And it gave me a big number, but it wasn't. It was actually a double. That's the proper type it was. And when I changed it to double, guess what? I got a longitude and a latitude, which is what I was waiting or looking for based on my previous research, what led me to the file. So playing with the types, you know, it can make a big difference. This big long number that makes no sense, and when you change it to double, it's actually an obvious a geolocation point. So that's what I was doing yesterday. So now what I'm going to do is, okay, I'm going to pick out selected values. So I'm going to go values, which is the, after I process it in this line here, when I process it with the types that I defined, values is my data structure. I'm going to go to number 1, the first key, and then I'm going to go to position 0 and get timestamp, right? If that doesn't make sense, let's look at it down here. I'm going to go to number 1, the key number 1, right? Since this is a list, I'm going to look at the first entry in that list. In this case, this list is only 1 entry, so there's no more. But in this case, which would be 0, and then inside of that is a dictionary. I'm gonna look for the timestamp 1 key. Does that make sense? For folks that have been taking the Python class with me, this should make sense, right? How you address items or data inside these data structures, right? The first is a key because it's a dictionary. The second is a position because it's a list, and then the third part here is again a key because it's a dictionary. Okay, if that makes sense, give me a 1. People in chat. Okay, awesome. So I got a timestamp, and I know it's timestamp like Unix timestamp. So I'm gonna make a quick conversion because I wanted to be able to actually read it. And this conversion is out of scope, and so it's fine. But there's ways of doing time conversions in Python that I will discuss in a future class. Okay, so I did my conversion. And when I do that, now I get, oh, look at it, how nice. Now I get, it was in January 31st. At this time, that search was made. And what was being searched? I'm gonna do the same thing for the search engine. Where was being searched and the result you got. So you got here, again, the data structure that deserialized the data, the first key, the first location in that list, which happens to be the only one, then the key search and the key engine. And I do the same thing for the URL that was returned from that search, I should say. So let's run it. And even to make it a little bit nicer so we can see some separation here. Let me put some prints here. Ah, there we go. All right, so look how nice this is, right? We were able to take that file, which looked originally like this, and we will actually be able to turn it into an actual timestamp that makes sense. Data that has context. Oh, it's a search engine, right? And kind of really segregate those URLs in a way that we can use. We can take this and maybe feed it to Unfurl. It's a great tool. I should have put it here, but UNFURL. And what Unfurl does is actually does some analysis on what all these different variables inside this URL mean. And there could be a wealth of data inside of here. But that way you can then take it to the next step doing that, right? So for recapping, when you're dealing with protobufs, you might not have a clear header or indicator that is protobuf. Maybe beyond looking at the byte stream and seeing a hex 808 or a hex 08A. And sometimes it's just trial and error, right? You open your file. I recommend, based on Yogesh research and work, which is fantastic, to use BlackBoxProtobuf to be able to process that protobuf and let it define to you the types, the program, the library things you should use. And then what you do is you copy paste them in your code, and then you kind of change them as you need to. Change them in a way that makes sense based on your research. And then feed those types into the library again. So then the library will do the proper selections or interpretations of those wire types. Map them to the ones you select, because those are the ones that you know should be the correct ones. And then you got your output. And as simple, I say simple, but just like that. So there was a lot of stuff that we talked in this 25 minutes. Again, this article here should be your key. Please go check it out. It explains what I explained here in a written fashion. So you can go through that. I would like to show you what I was doing yesterday because it was pretty neat. And since I already went and applied it to my actual program, it's kind of hard to kind of unspool that and put it in the original version. So anyways, I'll do it for another video. But yeah, no, this is really neat stuff. Again, I mean, thank you everybody for being here. And that's all I got for Protobufs today. So I'm gonna stop recording, and thank you so much.